Hey everyone, Evan Laux here with Motorcycle and Powersports News. I'm here with Tim Schmidt. He's the Senior Vice President of Octane Marketing, which is a Boston-based marketing business that provides multi-channel marketing solutions for automotive and powersports businesses. Tim, thanks for being with us today.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
And hey, I want to just start by saying congrats. You just recently had a son, your third child. How much sleep are you getting?
I'm getting a decent amount of sleep now. I'd say my wife is not getting as much as she should, but she's a saint for taking that burden. And yeah, he's doing great. He's grown like a weed, and he's turned into a big boy just like his dad. So
that's awesome,
excited.
Man.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations. And Tim, to the people who might not know your name, tell us a little bit about yourself and background and how you got to your position with Octane Marketing.
Yeah. So I'm Tim Schmidt, Senior Vice President at Octane. I've really spent the majority of my career in automotive marketing. Got started right out of school at a company called Tier 10, based out of DC. And Tier 10 was a automotive digital marketing agency, really kind of running the gamut of digital marketing services. So I cut my teeth there, kind of climbed through the ranks and ended up in a management position. I spent 5 years there, and then about a year in New York City working at an ad tech company called TubeMogul. TubeMogul is a demand-side platform that you buy and sell video media through. And so worked on their client services team there, kind of helping with various different things, actually all outside of automotive. So I worked with consumer packaged goods, Heineken, presidential candidates during the primaries. And so kind of got some good experience on the tech side and really understanding the inner workings of kind of how all this media is bought and sold. And then that took me to Octane. So 2016, got a call from Adam Stone, who's the owner of Octane. He said, hey, I know you're in New York and I hope things are great, but if you'd like to come up to Portland, Maine, we'd love to have you. And so 2016 moved up there with my wife and started our family. And so we've been there ever since. And right now currently live just outside of Portland, Maine and love it up there.
Perfect. Well, obviously it sounds like you have a lot of different experiences in different areas of, this digital landscape. And obviously with marketing, that's something that, changes really quickly, year to year, month to month.
Yep.
What are some trends you're seeing right now in terms of, marketing for dealerships?
Yeah, so one thing that's been, and this isn't really just this year, but for probably the last 5 years or so, has been data privacy concerns. So you've seen a lot of, all the way from like legislation, so California with their CCPA, Europe announced GDPA, which was, or GDPR, which was really all about data privacy concerns. And so it's been kind of this mounting, pressure on the industry to really look at the way that personal data is handled, right, and handled responsibly. And so whether it's legislation kind of coming, which more than likely will come in the next few years from the federal perspective, but state by state, we're starting to see these states say, hey, you know what, if consumers want to control their privacy with data, we really need to give them those levers to do so. And so we're now starting to see Apple release the iOS 14.5 update, app tracking transparency, which effectively said, if you'd like to track a user's activity across apps, and if you'd like to sell your application on the Apple App Store, you need to get active opt-in to actually track their information across devices. And so It's had implications on how easy it is to retarget folks. So Facebook and Instagram is the one that gets talked about a lot, but really this impacted every mobile app. At the end of the day now, if you want to sell your app on this store, you've got to get active opt-in. And the challenge with that is, as soon as consumers opt in, or opt out, sorry, you're no longer allowed to track them from a retargeting perspective, continue to follow them across the web. It makes it really tough to attribute any sort of conversion data to. So it's been an interesting time. It's kind of been an area that we've had to adapt pretty aggressively to. And what's coming down the road now is Google Chrome is going to get rid of third-party cookies by the end of 2024. And so that will absolutely have implications, right? We've seen small tech companies kind of along the way making these changes, making it a little more consumer-centric on data privacy. And so once Google Chrome goes that direction, third-party cookie tracking will effectively be dead. And it doesn't mean that we're not able to target people like we used to, but it'll just happen a little differently. So instead of saying, well, Tim Schmidt or unique ID 123 has done XYZ on the internet, and that's how we know he's in market for a motorcycle, for instance, now it'll be more cohort-based. So what did this group of people do that shows that they're in market for a motorcycle? And so it's not necessarily going to be worse. It's just going to be a little bit different. And so data privacy and how that integrates with technology and marketing is certainly going to be a big change as we push forward well beyond 2023. So that's a big trend. Beyond that, kind of in the same light though, is marketing personalization. So consumers nowadays really expect personalized marketing. When they get an ad on the internet, they expect that you already understand what they've already purchased, are shopping for, what their kind of behaviors and habits are. And so because of that, when we look at kind of trends for the next year, personalizing your marketing is going to be critical. And so, when you deliver an ad to somebody, let's say a dynamic inventory ad on Facebook or Instagram, you should be showing them bikes that they're interested in, right? If I'm in market for a cruiser or a Harley or something, you shouldn't be showing me dirt bikes. And if I'm in market for a side-by-side, you shouldn't be showing me ski-doos. And so that's really ultimately going to be a big piece in 2023 is understanding what your consumers are looking for, right? And then tailoring your advertising to them individually as best you can.
When you think of a small Powersports dealership that hasn't, dove heavily into the digital landscape, marketing, social media, how did they start that journey of, putting out personalized content and really hitting their consumers?
Yeah. So there's a lot of ways you can go about it. And one of the beauties of the dealership space is there's so much really good customer data. And so just kind of taking a step back and looking at, okay, what's the first way you can do this? Well, one very simple way is when you're sending your email campaigns, segment your customers in very small buckets that make sense. So whether it's based on their purchase date or what type of machine they've purchased or any of those bits of information, utilizing that first-party data that you already own and you're sitting on top of is a really great way to do that. So emails is one kind of good stepping off point. But beyond that, you can do all of the same things on social media or Google or really any of these platforms. Load in your customer data. You've got a one-to-one kind of data sharing agreement already in place with them because they've submitted their information to you or they've purchased from you, and leverage that to your advantage. So if you know that you'd like to buy back a bunch of one certain make or model, go and kind of pull together a list out of your CRM that says, well, these are all the people that own a 3 years or newer side-by-side with this make and model, and we'd love to buy these back, and you can use that to kind of leverage from your marketing perspective.
Okay. And when you have that information and people start, going towards social media, what is the best way for, these dealerships to attract their customers in terms of content? Are they just taking pictures of each, different product, or should they do video work? How long are those videos? Talk to us about social media a little bit.
Yeah. So from a social perspective, I like to separate the topic between organic and paid because, and sometimes they intersect, but at the end of the day, your organic content, so I'm talking about posting from your page, whether it's Facebook or Instagram or any other social platform, the organic content really should come from the voice of the dealership. So somebody local at the dealership that understands the local market, what the kind of trends are in that market, and really has a good kind of finger on the pulse of what their customers are looking for. That's going to be your best person at the dealership to really create the content. What I always like to recommend is it's tough to find time daily or weekly to produce this content. Schedule it out. So we work with our partners and say, okay, build out a content schedule for 3 months and create your 3 posts a week and have them scheduled to go out on all these platforms. And so there's a way to kind of bulk build this organic content to then use and distribute throughout the next quarter. And then from a paid perspective, really combination of your first-party customer data, so CRM data of people in your database that you understand what they've purchased or how they've serviced or anything like that. That's a really excellent way. But then behaviorally targeting. So we do a lot of work with third-party data where we go out and we work with a company like Oracle or Polk to understand people that are in market or people that currently own a certain machine. And leveraging that data is a really outstanding way to kind of broaden your horizons, right? We've talked a lot about how do I leverage my customer data, who I already understand what they own and what their needs are. But this is really looking at all those net new customers, people that you've never done business with before, but really would like to. And so behavioral data from a third-party perspective is a great way to do it, but then also using that first-party data.
So back to the social media front, people struggle with that content a lot, and we kind of talked about, what works and what doesn't. But, there's actually a lot of utilities that help dealerships make this good content. What kind of resources do they have?
Yeah. So there's a lot of either really inexpensive or free ways that you can create good video content. And when we look at the different types of ways that you can communicate a message, you've got your standard kind of static imagery, right? Your banners on your website, things like that. Then you've got video content, you've got audio content. Video is typically the best way to get a full message across, right? If your message is, hey, you just purchased this bike, you've got to come in for service on this maintenance schedule, video is a really outstanding way to do that. And so we always recommend, and one way that I've seen a lot of success is, from a social perspective, sharing that video really should feel super organic, right? So it's actually okay just to film this on an iPhone. Some of our best performing campaigns from a social perspective have been iPhone filmed videos of the GM or the owner of the store saying, hey, here's who we are, here's what we're all about, we're a family owned business, and come in and talk to me, or poor credit financing, things like that. We've seen a lot of success with like the sales manager getting on and saying, hey, we know that bad things happen to good people, but we can still put together a deal that will work for your finances. And so short form, very organic iPhone film content can work really great, and it's perfect for shareable content on social. It's also outstanding to use on your website. So going back to like maintenance reminders, service type things, having explainer videos on your service page is a really easy, free way to get good video on your website that's going to kind of drive the process forward for these customers. So short form content really is quality for a social perspective. We do a lot of what we call like streaming media advertising. So online video, which would be like your desktop, mobile, tablet, pre-roll content. So you go to ESPN.com, you're going to look for the highlight reel from last night's game. You have to watch some content before you can actually get that ESPN highlight reel. That non-skippable ad format is a really outstanding way to kind of broadcast a more polished commercial style video. And so leveraging things like free B-roll from manufacturers, right? Almost every manufacturer is going to have some really outstanding pre-filmed content, that running footage that you can leverage and use across your marketing. And it might be a small fee to pay a video editor to take some of this already filmed content from manufacturers, maybe put a voiceover over the top of it, some text on the screen, a donut at the end where you can say, hey, we've got this event going on, come see us now. That type of stuff can be not free, but a very efficient way to create really good quality video content and really deliver that through a demand side platform. So we run out of a company called The Trade Desk, big publicly traded demand side platform. And they allow us to kind of tie devices together. So by their device graph, we can understand, well, Tim Schmidt on his desktop did this, and then on his phone he did that, and then he watched on TV, these different segments. And so a really outstanding way to get in front of the key customers in your market. So with messaging that makes sense to them, personalized to their kind of journey, but also really efficient way to get that message out. And more importantly is, we compare streaming a lot of times to television advertising. And on TV advertising, you're typically selecting, okay, here's a show that I might have customers or prospective customers that might be watching. You might just say live sports is good. And you kind of try and tailor your buy to where you think your customers are. The beauty of digital is we can buy the people and really ignore the websites that they're on, right? So at the end of the day, I don't care if you're on ESPN.com or Tim Schmidt Sports Blog. The key is that you're in market for a bike, right? And so
Right.
that's the way that we approach streaming media is really, define the audience that you'd like to get in front of, create the video content or the audio content that's going to fit that messaging and that customer, and then track those all the way through, from impression to we like to look at what's called the view-through conversion. And so it's people who see your video, right? So they watch that commercial front to back. They didn't click on it and go to your website, but within a 30-day stretch after seeing it, they ended up on your site. And so it's kind of what, traditional TV advertisers have wanted to do for quite some time, is really understand, when I show people these commercials, are they then taking action, right? And so from a digital perspective, we've got all the tools and tracking necessary to kind of paint that picture.
Right.
Yep.
And I like what you said early on there about, getting dealer B-roll and even shooting a video on your iPhone, because I think a lot of, dealerships are afraid to approach that marketing, especially video side of things, because they think it's going to be extremely expensive.
Right.
But in a lot of ways, you can create pretty high quality content without, investing a ton of money.
Yeah, I mean, the iPhones nowadays have really outstanding video
It's
video
like a
quality.
high quality camera you can find in the store.
You can shoot in 4K.
Yeah.
So the technical side of things is really not the roadblock anymore. It's really just taking the time to do it. And I think what we've found is oftentimes there's somebody in the dealership that has a knack for video already. You may not even know it, but usually you find this person in the dealership that's like, wow, I really gravitate towards this. I enjoy doing
They're
it.
natural.
And they're naturally good at it. And so you can find that person that can kind of be your video champion internally, and let them kind of be off to the races. And ultimately it comes down to being able to do this quickly, right? Because sales change, seasons change, your inventory changes. And so having somebody on staff who can really do this stuff on the fly is really going to help a lot of dealers long term, kind of creating this content in a consistent manner. Because the other thing we see dealers do a lot is like, oh, I created one commercial, I'm good for the year.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And so it's
You have to be consistent.
Exactly. Consistent and really, back to personalization, have enough options to really deliver the right content to the right people.
Definitely.
Yep.
And Tim, a lot of stores are, kind of laser focused on generating more leads with paid advertising, which obviously is great and works. But are there any areas that dealers can attack or things they can do before they jump into paid advertising?
Yeah. And so I actually just spent a good amount of time talking about this at Dealer Week, which is on the marine side in December. And the way that I explain it is getting your digital house in order. So, I think a lot of times, and rightfully so, dealers have so many different roles and responsibilities that they're taking care of on a daily basis at the store, that the website and your web presence and your analytics and all of those things typically are kind of second fiddle to dealing with the customer who's sitting in front of you, and totally understand that side of things, right? If you're the sales manager, marketing guy, you also run the events at the store, it's tough to really kind of wrangle all of these things and do it all perfectly. But what we like to look at, and one of the areas where I'd start is, think about your website and your digital presence as your physical dealership. Because at the end of the day, oftentimes, especially with a customer who you've never had any interaction with before, this is the very first time they've ever interacted with your business, right? If I search motorcycle dealer, Cleveland, Ohio, and I've just moved to Cleveland or whatever the case may be, the Google business pages that show up are going to be the ones that I'm interacting with, looking at photos, reading reviews. The websites that show up on the top of paid and organic listings are what I'm going to engage with. And if I take somebody to a website that's clearly from 2010, has not been updated, the fonts and everything just don't work right, it's tough to navigate and it's very clunky, that's a very poor user experience.
Yeah.
So the way that I describe it to dealers is, if you wouldn't feel proud to have every brand new customer look at this very first time they've ever interacted with your business, don't do it. Mm-hmm. And so, the way to kind of approach that, and I'll talk through a handful of different things here. One is your website. So navigate your website like a customer on all devices. And what I recommend is find somebody at the dealership that doesn't scan your website every day. Because if you spend all your time on the website, you know where to go, you know where the navigation is. But sit behind, let's say, a service advisor who really doesn't spend any time on your website and say, go look for XYZ in the inventory and watch them on their phone and see, well, where did they get hung up? Where in this process or the navigation is it becoming clunky? And take note of that and work with your website company, work with the folks that are building your website or maintaining it to remove those areas of clunkiness. And so whether it's the navigation menu was tough to find and work through, or the content on the website was old and we're in winter and you still have spring sale messaging up, right? So content on your website, navigate it like a customer, and the next piece of it is making sure that you've got the right tracking and analytics in place. So dealerships, physical dealerships, it's challenging to get true headcount on how many people walk through that door every day, right? Yeah. Door swings or just opportunities that come through the door. With your website, you can track every single entrance, exit, and then beyond that, what do they do on the website? And so get Google Analytics on the site if you don't already. I always recommend that dealers own their analytics, right? So it's your data, it's your website. If you're working with a website company that hasn't shared that ownership access to you, go ahead and get that done, because for whatever reason, if you leave that website, you want to be able to carry that data forward and understand, what did I do last year and how does that compare this year? So getting Google Analytics set up, tracking conversions, right? It's baseline. You want to get Google Analytics on the site. Beyond that, you really want to understand, when people get to your site, are they taking actions that make sense or actions that you care about, right? So viewing inventory, clearly those are shoppers. They're looking at inventory on your website. People that fill out forms or chat using your chat functionality or call, all of these actions are what we like to look at as buying indicators. And so if you can build the goals out in Google Analytics to understand, I send traffic to the site, they then interact this way with the website, and hear how many leads I got out of it, you can now look at your marketing plan and understand what's working, what's not, right? And on the fly, really make these adjustments to fine tune your campaigns. And so that constant feedback loop is impossible without an analytics, whether it's Google Analytics or any of the other ones, because you just don't fully understand what people did when they got to your site. So, right. So getting the sites, really structured and firing on all cylinders is important. And then, the tracking and analytics, and beyond that, things like Google Business Profiles, it's free, right? You set one up, and a lot of times what I see is people set up a profile, but they don't go ahead and revamp the photos, or they've got photos from their old showroom, they've got this brand new facility, and they're not even showing them off on their page. Mm-hmm. And again, that's the first interaction that somebody has with your business in a lot of cases. So keeping your reviews up to date, keeping all that content up to date, optimizing primary and secondary categories with your Google Business Profile is critical. And then beyond that is really CRM. So CRMs are as good as they are used. And that's typically the biggest downfall of CRMs, is just they're not used. Right. And so make sure that your CRM you've got a process in place, so every customer that comes through, whether from a digital perspective or physically in the store, makes it into the system. And then beyond that, make sure the data is accurate and clean, right? Because bad data in always turns into bad data out. And so getting the CRM, really wrapping your head around the CRM, the process, making sure that the folks in your store that are responsible for entering this information actually do it. And I get it. Like, if you're a sales guy and you're working a bunch of deals, last thing you want to do is go back at the end of the day and plug all these customers into the system. But I'll say it's not just about the deal right now, it's really about that deal long term. And without getting that record into the system, it's impossible 6 months from now to put them into a drip campaign and run your email marketing, right? And say, hey, I know that a few months back this wasn't the right time for you, but here's what we've got for new products, or here's the new offers that we're putting out there in the market.
Right. And Tim, we kind of already hit on this a little bit, with the dealer B-roll, iPhone video, stuff like that. But for people who want to start a multi-channel, marketing strategy here, and they don't necessarily have that huge budget, they're on the lower end, they're just starting out, what are some strategies they can employ to get that ball rolling?
Yeah. So first and foremost, I would say, make sure you've got email marketing in place. It's effectively free. Companies like MailChimp or Constant Contact, or oftentimes even your CRM directly, you can send emails to your customer base. And so from a kind of table stakes perspective, make sure that email marketing is a part of your plan. Beyond that, social media from an organic perspective, again, is free, right? Now, your organic reach is not as aggressive as it was maybe 5-10 years ago, but there's still value there. And you can oftentimes spend very little dollars promoting that content to the right audience. So organic content across your social channels, email marketing. Beyond that, really, leveraging that and kind of touching back onto the CRM side of things. Make sure you've got good customer data to go and market to beyond the initial touch point, because not every customer that walks through the door buys now, and if you're not following up those customers long term and nurturing those leads, you're really going to lose that prospect over time. Somebody else will pick that prospect up. So yeah, email marketing, social media marketing, really optimizing your digital presence, all of those types of things are great ways to just kind of get your base level marketing in place. And then, once you've got those pieces in order, really start tackling some of these more advanced strategies like dynamic inventory ads on Facebook are extremely effective in driving good quality traffic to listing detail pages on the website. And so we do a ton of that with our partners now, and is probably the most efficient way to get traffic, good quality traffic to your listings on your website.
Right. Well, Tim, obviously marketing is something that's, might be a little confusing to new people, but I think you cleared up a lot of topics here that people don't have a ton of knowledge on. Is there anything else you want to hit on, before we hop off in terms of marketing?
Yeah. So, I think touching back to data privacy, make sure that you're getting Google Analytics 4 set up on your website. So we touched on Google Analytics as a topic in general, but Google Analytics 4 is going to be the system that's really built for Web3. And Web3, the biggest change there is going to be this cohort-based targeting, cohort-based attribution and analytics. We're already less than a year out to that transition. It's going to be a forced transition next summer. Get that set up on your website if you don't already, so then you're collecting data, and as soon as possible you can look at good quality year-over-year stuff. So really get your digital house in order. That solid foundation is going to be critical. And what's been interesting is the last couple of years, a lot of dealers haven't really, at least from a paid perspective, haven't done a ton of marketing, right? Mm-hmm. Manufacturers have not been producing a lot of machines because of supply chain issues. Demand has been through the roof. And so what we found was a lot of dealers are like, well, I've got 10 pieces of inventory and I've got 5 people stacked on each one of those units that want to buy it if the next person doesn't. And so, marketing principles and marketing kind of like standards, I think have kind of fallen back in the list of priorities, as well as, really old school selling, right? Like salespeople themselves hadn't really had to sell a whole lot the last few years. So take this year as a way to kind of reset and go back to basics a little bit and kind of get that blocking and tackling, really taken care of. And then, I'd start looking at some of these more advanced tactics for targeting and marketing. And then, collect as much first-party data as you can. As we see third-party data kind of changing, at least the way that it operates and the impact of it, it's going to be important that you collect as many customer records as possible and then make sure that that data is clean. So once third-party targeting goes away, or goes away the way we know it, you've got a good option to kind of fall back on with your own existing customer data. And then, beyond that, we're going to be at AIM Expo in February, and we'll be at booth 4076. So if anybody wants to come by and say hi, I'd love to chat.
Awesome. Well, Tim, thanks again. It was a great discussion.
Yeah.
I learned a lot today. I'm sure everybody else learned a lot today. And, guys, make sure you check out MPN for more great content. Follow our Power Player series and follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and all of our social media accounts. Make sure you're checking out Octane Marketing and definitely visit them at AIM. Visit us at AIM as well. And have a great day.